Welcome, everyone. Thank you for attending this 9th webinar in Engage's Association Best Practice Series. Today's subject is translating customer experience into member experience. As you may have surmised, I am not Jason Stone. I am sorry to share that Jason is unable to host our webinar today due to a death in his family. He will be returning to host the series for our next webinar on 12/3. And in the interim, we offer him our sincerest condolences and look forward to his return. My name is Kristen Palm. I'm a project manager with Engage. In my role here, I work with about 25 associations in a variety of project types, from content management upgrades to association management integrations. But I don't usually host webinars. I tell Jason that I'm a little shy and prefer to stay behind the scenes. So please forgive me of any stumbles or missteps. It is my first time behind the mic. Today, in Jason's absence, I have the honor of being your host. Through this best practice series, we have invited our friends in association thought leadership to join us to discuss and share their insights on a variety of topics related to successful association administration and growth. Before I introduce our speaker, I'd like to go over just a few basic housekeeping items. To maintain a quiet environment, all attendees are in listen-only mode. Our host is looking for an interactive session, so I will be monitoring the Q&A box. Please submit questions, feedback, input through there, and we will address either during the presentation or afterwards. The webinar is being recorded and will be posted on the Engage website, and for the first time, we are streaming it live on our Facebook channel as soon as I get that set up here in just a few minutes. Our host today is Tammy Puyear, and today's webinar is a unique one in our series. For this presentation, we reached out to the corporate world for our expert to give her modern take on corporate concept, customer experience, or CX, and apply it to the association realm, member experience, or as I called it in my emails going out about this webinar, MX. As CX has become a hot concept, I'm eager to learn from our speaker. Tammy is a senior operations leader with a long career touching experience, be it customer, member, employee, or candidate. She has held roles in healthcare and telecommunications and is a board member for 2 animal welfare nonprofit organizations. Today, Tammy will be talking about what constitutes member experience for associations and how vast and diverse the member touch points are in association organizations. There is a perceived value for membership, and little considered interactions all contribute to the experience members receive. Tammy is active on LinkedIn, and I'm responsible for the social accounts for Engage, Twitter, Facebook, and LinkedIn. We'd both love to see any quotes or messages that resonate with you shared on there. We encourage you to tweet and post away. And so at this time, I'm going to hand over controls to Tammy.
Kristen, thank you so much for such a glowing introduction. When Jason came to me and asked me about this topic, I found myself really excited because it's something that I feel passionately about. So as Kristen mentioned, I come from the corporate world, having been in product and service organizations. And there's been a changing of the guard, so to speak, over the past 10 to 15 years. When we think about in the corporate world, in commercial, we think about customer service as being this very specific thing. Customer service means if I call a telephone number, how nice is the person to me? If I send an email, how nice is the person to me? How does it leave me feeling about the company? And with the advent of technology, the advent of competition, and so many new players and new ways to engage, we start talking more and calling things experiences. And I think that the most critical part of all of this is, if you think in terms of being a consumer, you have certain expectations of what a brand or what a company is going to deliver in terms of what you're asking of them. The experience piece of it, I think, is best stated as end to end and every single touch point that exists. And so when we think about associations in particular, that's when we really get into what member experience is. And so the slide that you have in front of you probably seems very elementary, but I think that there's a lot more we can talk about in terms of digging into it. And so, if someone were asking me to define what is member experience, it's the exchange of my membership, the time that I give, the dues that I pay or membership fees that I pay, the public relations that I give. And that exchange is for the value that the associations bring to their members. So as a member, think about this. You're a member of one or more associations. What are your expectations in terms of what that membership is giving to you? What is the level of effort that you as a member have to put forth in order to feel valued? What's the feeling that I have after I've interacted with my association? And finally, if you've heard of Net Promoter Score, this one probably is not a stretch, but what do I tell others about the benefits of the association? So as we go through this, I'd like for you to try to wear two hats at one time. One, as a member of the association, but two, as the association themselves, how all of this impacts so much more than whether or not people think that the association is a good thing. So on the next slide, we talk about members paying dues or fees, attending events, going to meetings, and maintaining a network with their peers. That's the work that they put out. In exchange, your members want to receive connections, so access to other people within an association or within a profession. They want to exchange information, so build relationships with others in this space. It's where a lot of things come about in terms of best practices. They want to improve. They want to provide forums for sharing of topics and innovation or best practices. And finally, resources. As a group of professionals that all have your association purpose in common, what does your access to continuing education look like? What do your forums look like? Do you have luncheons? Or like this session, do you have webinars? So if you think about from a member's perspective, very often in their head, it's, I'm a member of the Association of Dog Lovers. I pay $25 a year. And in return, I want to know that I'm going to be connected to other dog lovers. I want to be able to build relationships with other dog lovers. I want to have places where I can go and interact with dog lovers. And I want to find out what other people are doing in terms of what's the latest and greatest technology? What's the best way to house train a puppy? And I want to be able to continue to learn more about my peers in the industry, about my peers in the association, and to have memorable and lasting interactions. So all of this, again, probably sounds very elementary in theory, but as we get into it a little bit deeper, I think that there's a lot of interactions that we don't always think about in terms of evaluation for our members. Now, again, going back to the customer service or customer product side of things and thinking in terms of corporate, we have all sorts of KPIs and metrics that we can evaluate. The thing that's really important to think about is all of the different ways that you interact with your members, with your potential members, perhaps with your sponsors. And so that's where we really have to start thinking in terms of what are all the ways that we engage, no pun intended, but very convenient, what are all the ways that we engage with people who are part of our association, people who want to learn more about our association? And so that's what it broke down here that I want us to talk through in terms of what kind of interactions are we talking about. The first one that you'll see there is search engine optimization results. And basically that means, how easy is it for me to find you? If I'm coming off the street and I'm a dentist and I want to find out how I can be a part of specific associations to dental, when I go to the magical Google machine and I type in dental associations, how many results come back? Of those results, where does my particular association land in that list of potential associations? If I'm easy to find, that gives me more exposure to potential members. It also plants the seed in a member's head or a potential member's head that my association has some notoriety and some implied credibility because of where I rank in terms of results. It's a very small thing, but if you think about it in terms of how many associations exist for different professions, different companies, all sorts of associations, those search results are going to bring back a lot. And so it's important for you to understand how that works. The next thing you'll see is the association website. This one is one that's very important to me, and I'll tell you a short story that sort of illustrates why this one is so important. You'll hear people talk about UX, or user experience, and what that really means is, as a user, what does it look like on my screen? What does it look like and how does it behave when I take actions with my mouse or my keyboard? I previously was in the healthcare field and worked in a Medicare Advantage organization. And we had a real struggle with a lot of our members calling in because they couldn't find something on the website. And so we went out to the website to look at it. And what we found was members weren't seeing a button on their screen. And so we sort of scratched our heads and said, well, why can't they see it when I can see it? The reality was we weren't putting ourselves in the user's seat. Medicare Advantage is for members who are over 65 years of age. And if you have anyone in your life that you know from that age group, you've probably been their go-to IT person to make their screen read differently. By that I mean a lot of seniors have impaired vision. And so they'll often ask friends and family that help them with technology to fix their browser so that it's larger print and larger display. And so what was happening was when these members would go in to look, they weren't seeing the button unless they scrolled because their screen was larger. And finding out later what a simple fix it was really enlightening because it was something we could actively work on and find and have a really positive impact on our members and their ability to interact with us. So when you're thinking in terms of your website, is it clear and easy to navigate? Does it serve your prospective members and your current members? And then in terms of inquiry and response mechanisms, do you have a contact us button? If you do, what happens when I click that button? When I click that button, if there is one, does it give me the opportunity to send an email through a browser? Does it pop up a form for me to fill out? After I've completed whatever that mechanism is, do I get anything back? Do I get something that says, thanks for reaching out to us. We're routing your request and we'll be back to you within 24 hours. Look very carefully at what that user experience with your website looks like, because remembering the different perspective for how long a minute is depends on which side of the bathroom door you're on. When someone submits something to your website, they need to have a clear expectation of whether or not they know that you got their message and how quickly they should expect to get some attention from you. Next thing that I have here is your member communications. And so this is the part where I think most of us think about member experience. How do you interact with your members? How do you interact with potential members? How do you interact in terms of ongoing? Do you do so digitally? Do you do it by mail? Do you do it by call? What does the cadence look like? Are you only reaching out to your members when you have an event, or it's time to pay the fees, your annual membership costs? What does the format look like? Is it a template that you use like MailChimp? And then finally, is there a call to action? When you think in terms of the communications that you have with your members, I think it's important to think about what their ability to spend time doing looks like. I think it's important to make them feel abreast of things that are happening. It's important, certainly, to illustrate the benefits of their membership on an ongoing basis. But it's also really good to, integrate with social media your member communications. That's what I mean when we talk about digital or not and format. Kristen, as she was saying, does the social media for Engage. Your members and your association communications are not always going to be in the form of an email. This thing called social media that we're also aware of, a lot of people, depending on what they do for a living, how they choose to use their time online, lots of different things contribute to how they choose to interact. And I think it's important for us to remember that social media is one leg of that whole strategy about member communications. But it's also a good time to think about building a calendar of communications and really thinking through a strategy that says, what's the right cadence for communications with members? What's the right timing? What's the right message? And then whether or not, if there's a call to action, what does that call to action look like? I'll refer us back to thinking about the website. Let's say that Kristen posts something for Engage on Facebook, and her call to action is, tell us your favorite thing about the webinar today. How hard or easy is it for you to fulfill that call to action? If it's on Facebook and I have the opportunity to just quickly type in a comment, I'm a lot more likely to do that if I have an answer to the question than I am to go look up Kristen's email and send her a note, or go look up Jason's email and type something out. So think in terms, again, put yourself in the seat of the member, and think about what that call to action is. The last thing that I want to talk about is, what are your feedback mechanisms? And by that, I mean all of the things that you do, all of the interactions, all of the things that you do in terms of interacting with your members. How do you get your feedback? How do you, from your membership, learn what's working, learn what may not be working? How do you get feedback from your members on what their preferences are in terms of how often to communicate? Feedback mechanisms can be proactive, or they can be a part of something that you're already doing. For example, many of us receive a lot of emails on a given day from subscriptions that we have. Many of us get emails every day for things that we didn't subscribe to. And so we've taught ourselves for those to quickly scroll to the bottom and click the unsubscribe button. When you use a tool to communicate with your membership via email blasts, you do have the ability to use the data to tell you what's working and what's not. That's one of the things that you can use as a feedback mechanism. So giving an example, if we send out an email blast that says all of the members of the Cat Fancier Association, we send them an email and we say, Giving Tuesday is coming up on December 3rd. Will you be participating? I have the ability from an email blast by looking at the data to see, did that message cause people to participate more, to engage more, to unsubscribe more, to request more information? Data, as we all know, has become something that's really, really valuable to all of us in terms of seeing how effective we are, but also being able to solicit information without just directly asking for it. I'm gonna pause there. I know that I've been doing a lot of talking, and I wanted to know if we had any questions thus far before we kind of wrap up. And Kristen, I don't have the question screen in front of me, but do let me know if we have any questions that are outstanding.
Yep, in fact, there is one. It is, how did you fix that button issue?
That's a great question. It was actually something that we did with the button. What we found was that in trying to make navigation easier, we actually republished the URL so that the button didn't exist. And by that I mean the button was a subset off of a main page. And so when we communicated with our members, we had a custom URL that eliminated this step altogether so that the member was brought directly to the page that they were meant to go to. And that, clearly that has a lot of benefits for us. One of them, and the primary one for me, is the decrease in dissatisfaction with members feeling like they weren't technically savvy. And it, cut down on the time that the interaction took as well, because they weren't having to seek and find. That's a great question.
Okay, and we've got one more.
Okay.
If we think our site is clear and easy to navigate, but sorry, I read that wrong. We think our site is clear and easy to navigate, but are there tools available to make sure that what we think is accurate for everyone?
That's a good question. There's a million quotes that you can't make everybody happy all the time, but I have on the next slide, I'm going to answer that question for you. What I wanted to issue to all of you is a member experience challenge. Put yourself in the seat of your membership and make an attempt to test what your experience looks like. Put aside all of your preconceived notions about who you are as an organization and put yourself strictly in the mindset of, I am a member of this association. And I've given you some suggestions here, and this is how I think we answer that question. Number one, go to the magical Google machine and see how hard it is to find your website. That's going to give you some idea of where you fit in search results. Once you find your website, go to that URL and try to submit an online inquiry, whether it's a contact us form, whether it's an email us form, whatever it is, go through the exercise as a test and answer those questions that we talked about. Does it leave me feeling that I've been heard? Does it set an expectation of when someone will answer my inquiry? And when I do get an answer, what is the quality of that in terms of me feeling valuable as a member? The next one is consider surveys. Surveys in this day and age are very easy to put together, but they're not always something that has a huge return. However, a lot of people that we know, peers and colleagues, are more than happy to fill out surveys and give us candid feedback. The next one probably seems a little outdated, but send US mail if it's applicable. If today you do anything hard copy through snail mail, what are you getting out of it? What does it look like? What's the experience if you do when I pull it out of my mailbox? Is it a folding brochure? Is it a pop-up book? Really think in terms of what that looks like from a member's perspective. The next one is send an email. Send an email blast and be transparent about why you're sending it. We're looking to figure out how our members best interact. We're sending you this email and we'd like you to read it and provide feedback. A lot of times with that email, and especially the transparency part, when you tell people what you're doing and ask them for their opinion, they're much more likely to engage with you. Use the results from that email blast to see what they're telling you. The next one I think is what the question was about. We think that we have a good website, but how do we know? Go to your website and give it a user experience evaluation. Again, all of the things that we were talking about above. Click every link and see where it goes. See if it makes sense when you're sitting in the member seat. That full user experience is probably going to take the better part of a day. But once you've used your website and you've literally clicked every possible thing, you're really getting a good idea of what those user stories were or are, and you're getting an idea of where you might find things that you can improve or things that you'd like to enhance. And that's really bringing us to the last bullet here, and that is attempt to recruit for your association someone that's a peer or someone that you trust to provide candid feedback. There are certainly many of us who have experience in experience, whether that's a customer, a member, an employee, or a candidate. And I bring us back to the different kinds of experience, because all of those are something that you want to think about when you're giving your website an evaluation. When I say click on every possible link and really give it a workout, remember on social media and on your website, you're getting people who might be coming to you because they'd like to work for you. You're getting people who might want to join your organization. You're getting people who have heard about your organization and may want to learn more about how they can join it. What those experiences look like can all have a profound impact on your brand. So don't hesitate to reach out to someone and tell them what you're doing and ask them to give candid feedback, because different perspectives really help us uncover some of these things that we sort of gloss over and we don't think through. If you know someone that is a potential candidate or someone, who's in transition, like myself, I can't tell you enough how many times I've gone to a website and went to the career page and experienced something crazy. And as I'm filling out the information, I'm thinking to myself, if I get my foot in the door, I have to tell them what their candidate experience looks like, because it's terrible. So when you think about the association and doing your recruitment to test your user experience, try to pick people of different age ranges, different groups. Try to pick people with different specialties, not necessarily someone that's proficient in UX. Even if it's a family member, I think you can have all the different views through the lenses that way. I hope that answered the question. Kristen, do we have another?
No, we don't have any more questions at the moment. People who are on the line, please, if you do have any questions, post them in the Q&A box. And in fact, I've got a question for the people on the line. I would like to know how many of you have an association, or sorry, an SEO expert on your staff, or if that is something that you outsource. So if you can answer that question in the Q&A box, I think that would just be an interesting piece of information to know.
I would agree with you. In fact, but a lot of the traditional marketing rules that we've seen have sort of evolved over time. And so a lot of times you'll see job postings or articles by people who are billed as digital marketing specialists or digital marketing managers or digital marketing experts. And it's not only do these folks, understand the concepts of social media and the concepts of digital marketing, but a lot of them are coming to the table with extensive experience in search engine optimization. So I think that's a really good call out.
Very good. And I do want to piggyback on one thing too. I love how you said recruiting, your last bullet point there about recruiting people. Because that's just such critical feedback that you get, and honest feedback, I would hope, since it is a peer of yours. There are, as a website development agency, there are different tools available, such as Site Improve, but that one does cost, and it checks for website accessibility so that you are hitting those ADA compliance requirements. There's a free tool that you can add to your Chrome extensions, and that's called Wave. And it again checks the accessibility for ADA compliance. And you can run that Wave tool to see where your website isn't meeting the minimum requirements for accessibility needs.
That's fantastic.
All right, so Tammy, it doesn't look like there are any other questions posted in the Q&A box.
Okay. Then I'm going to move us back, and I'm going to stop sharing, Kristen, and give it back to you. Thank you again for having me. I've so enjoyed this topic. Obviously, it's something I feel strongly about.
Very good. All right, so before we do wrap it up for the afternoon, just wanted to do a quick connect the dots. I've introed it a little bit of why we reach out to these association and corporate experts such as Tammy, and it's because Engage works in the association space. So we've worked with ProTech, NetForum, Altai, etc. And we've got 20 plus years of website development and custom software development experience with 35 plus successful association website launches. These are a handful of our clients. And I actually ran through that really quick. I was trying to not be super fast, but that's all right. I guess that's my first time jitters coming through. So if there are no other questions from the folks on the line, we will go ahead and call it a day. And I do appreciate everyone who joined us. We do have our next webinar coming on 12/3, and that is going to be with Scott Osser from Osser Associates. And he's going to be talking about 10 tips to crush your goals in non-dues revenue. So it would be ads, exhibits, and sponsorships. So 10 tips to crush your goals in non-dues revenue. All right. Thank you very much, everyone. And thank you, Tammy.
Thank you so much.